a lot of exciting data again, just as every year, especially probably this year. 24 oral abstracts. I've not seen that before in MPN clinical, just clinical MPN, not counting basic science. 24 orals. So I think the one that has to be mentioned right at first is the pemigatinib. Pemigatinib is an FGFR1 inhibitor, small molecule inhibitor, and that led to response rates around 75% in that range. Cytogenetic response as well as complete response. In this trial called Fight 203 that was presented by Jason Gottlieb. 33 patients. Now, important to point out that FGFR1 rearranged myeloid lymphoid neoplasm with eosinophilia. It's a mouthful. That entity is very rare and very difficult. It's very aggressive. There's no good therapies. So again, accruing 33 patients with that entity is sort of no mean achievement. And it took a while, of course. This trial has been in the making for some time. I think Dr. Verstopsek had presented results from this back in 2018 or so. It's been some time, maybe 18 or 19. So in the 75% range, very impressive results. So that would be number one for me. And then, rusfertide or PTG 300 continues to, make a lot of news. Now we did hear these results at EHA for the most part, 63 patients in their phase 2. Now this is the hepcidin mimetic. So when you mimic the action of hepcidin, you trap iron in the reticuloendothelial system, and you don't allow the iron to be available to the bone marrow to make red blood cells. So that's a very clever and neat mechanism. 63 patients again in the phase 2. The most important thing is that it virtually eliminated the need for phlebotomy, and that is what it is supposed to do. So as a hepcidin mimetic, the main thing you would think it would do is get the hematocrit down and thereby eliminate the need for phlebotomy, and it does that beautifully. It really does that very, very well. Symptoms also improve, which is interesting. Now, some of them could be iron deficiency symptoms, which will improve if you correct the iron deficiency. Patients are not requiring phlebotomy anymore. Iron levels go up. Indicators of iron stores get better. Those symptoms get better. But even overall, if you look at the TSS, the total symptom score that we are used to in MPN trials, that improved. So which is very interesting. I don't think it does much to the white blood cells. I think those sort of stay stable. Now, something interesting that came out of the ASH presentation was that there is some rise in platelets. There's some rise in platelets, and I don't think this is well understood at this point. This is an important thing to study further because we need to understand what this means. Our current thinking is that the platelet count does not really contribute to thrombotic risk in PV. So I'm not particularly worried about this, but this is something that was seen and deserves further investigation. So I guess, those are some of the ones that come to mind right away, but there were a lot of other interesting things. For example, avapritinib, there was some analysis from the Explorer trial, the phase 1 Explorer trial. This is in advanced systemic mastocytosis, showing that the progression of disease, that occurs on this drug is really not from the mast cell component. It's from the associated hematologic neoplasm that many of these patients have. Most patients with advanced SM have an associated hematologic neoplasm, and it is those clones, not the KIT-mutated clones that are being targeted by the drug, but it's those clones that may be driving progression in these patients, which is sort of intuitive. You would sort of expect that, but that is something that was shown, Mike Deininger presenting that abstract. And then, in MF, there were, of course, many abstracts, oral abstracts. MF, of course, is always the sort of the hot seat of drug development in MPNs. But I'll just mention a couple really quickly. quickly, bomedemstat, is the LSD1 inhibitor. We saw a lot more data on that. It's been presented many times before, but now they are up to 89 patients. So an active drug, although I will say that the rates of SVR35 were rather low, and then the TSS50 improvement, I think, was modest. However, it's an active drug and it's a new mechanism. Now, while on that topic, this same drug was investigated in ET. So there's some interesting data there showing some nice control of the platelet counts as well as the white blood cell counts. Now, the white blood cell count is thought to be more important in ET from a thrombosis prevention standpoint. But those were the first results in ET. Well, actually, not the first. There was something at EHA, but these were more patients, I think around 37 patients. So bomedemstat, something to continue to watch in both MF and ET is what I would say. They are launching several trials, new trials, including in PV. So that's something. And then finally, I've been involved with pelabresib for some time. That's the BET inhibitor from Constellation, now acquired by MorphoSys. And this drug, we again had some nice results from the ongoing MANIFEST study. This is a large study. It has accrued 86 patients in each of its 3 arms. It's a pretty large study for a phase 2 study. And Marina Kremianskaya at one of the oral sessions presented the monotherapy with this drug. Again, the efficacy is relatively modest as a single agent. The efficacy is far better in combination, but it could be a useful single agent as well. There was a 16% transfusion independence rate. There was an 18% SVR35 rate, and then there was I think a 28% TSS50 rate. So these are the monotherapy with this drug in patients who are transfusion dependent as well as in those who are not. Now, the other 2 arms of the MANIFEST study actually are of greater interest because this drug, as I alluded to before, pelabresib works better in combination with ruxolitinib. So arm 2 was the add-on, where you add on pelabresib to a suboptimal ruxolitinib responder, and arm 3 is the frontline, JAK inhibitor naive patient where you start both drugs from the get-go. So those results were there in a poster presented by Serge Verstovsek, along with translational findings. And those continue to really impress. In the frontline setting, 68% spleen response and 56% symptom response, really indicative of the synergism there that you are seeing. And as well in the add-on, the results with both spleen and symptoms continue to be, I want to say spleen was around 20% and symptoms around 37%, but there are many different cohorts in this study. So both as an add-on approach and as a frontline approach, particularly the frontline, which is the direction the company is taking with the phase 3 MANIFEST-2 study, I think this is a very promising combination. And as a bonus, it may be a useful drug in monotherapy as well.